Hey, what's going on? It's Doug Cunnington here, and this is the Doug Show. In this episode, I will talk to Emilia Gardner about her niche site, and it's under a very cool project name called MIGA, which I'll let her share exactly what that is. And she started it at the beginning of this year, so January 1st, 2021. In October, she hit $946 with a combination of earnings from Ezoic and Amazon, mostly from Ezoic. Traffic is about 70,000 visitors per month, and she has 417 articles. So we're going to dig into the details and ask her all about keyword research, content, and the like. Emilia, how are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me, Doug. I'm great, and I'm super jazzed to be here again. This is, I think, my third time on the podcast, so hopefully folks know by now who I am, and we don't have to talk about my backstory at all.
We can, I want to let you get away with that. So people should listen to the previous episodes. But just for people that don't know you at all, what's the 2-sentence summary about who you are and what you do now?
I'm a former professional, mostly half time working online. I'm a mom, and I am focused on building websites as my full-time gig. That's how I live and pay the bills.
Awesome. And again, listen to the previous episodes. You can get the full rundown, all the backstory. We tend to go on for a pretty long time, so it's like joining us for a conversation. Now, today we're going to talk about the MIGA site. So first, what does MIGA, that's M-I-G-A, what does it stand for, and what was the driver to start this case study?
Well, I will point out that case study is, I'm putting up my air quotes, case study. I think it's a little deceptive in that it's mostly, I decided to start a new site, and on my YouTube channel, just chronicle the monthly exploits of the site. I'm not testing anything in particular to say, okay, at the end, there's a result. Like I tested an age domain or this particular strategy. Mostly that's just what we call them on YouTube, is anybody who is chronicling their site on a month basis. It gets called a case study. It's really just a website. As for the name, yeah, on YouTube, people historically call it, site one, site two. And as a viewer of these, I frequently get confused because was it site one or site two from last month? I don't know. So I wanted to call it something that stood out, something that was a little ridiculous because it's a play on, making America great again versus making the internet great again, which is what the MIGA stands for. And it came about because there was a handful of us last year in 2020 that decided that the year was a dumpster fire, and this would be a great opportunity to take some action and start something new with the goal of having a great year. So that is where it came from, and that is why it is called that.
We were chatting before I started recording, and you talked about focusing. And I know you've had some other, not necessarily case studies, but stories that you have shared on your YouTube channel. And you've had a few sites, you've purchased some. So can you tell us about some of the spinning plates that you have and maybe things that you've pushed aside so that you can focus on this side a little bit more?
How long have you got? I mean, the goal was to go a little bit shorter today. Historically, I have had my YouTube channel. So I have two YouTube channels now. One is dedicated to live streams like yours, talking about niche websites. And then my main channel, I started a podcast. And then I also have a portfolio of about 10 sites, as you said, some of them that I bought and some of them that I have started. And they're all in various stages of growth and learning. But really what I had to do in 2021, and the goal was just to focus, pick something and just really go all in on it. Because what I was doing was jumping from thing to thing to thing. And I was never really putting my full attention onto any of these things. And I thought, okay, let's see what happens if I just put my money where my mouth is and do 12 months solid on one thing and just let those other things sort of fall away. So yes, I have absolutely neglected everything else. Everything else, all the spinning plates, I don't even know where they are. But this project is the fruit of that labor.
How hard is it to leave those things neglected? Has it been a struggle?
For me, 100%, because I am somebody who I think thrives on variety. And that was one of the reasons why I loved having lots of things to do, because if I just didn't feel like working on one particular project, guess what? I've got 10 lined up right behind it. And so I could serve that part of my personality that likes to do different things all the time. But that quirk of mine that likes that variety, it was almost like self-sabotage in a way, because I wouldn't be able to really get the momentum that I needed on any of these projects to launch them to where I wanted them to go. So it was like overcoming myself in a way.
Okay. And I mean, I think a lot of, because you're sort of newer to affiliate marketing and niche sites, only a few years, couple years, something like that.
Yeah, this is year 4 for me.
4. And I know as people are getting their footing, and I did the same thing, but we might hear about people that are a few years ahead of us who have several sites, and we're like, oh, that must be the right way to do it. But we're like jumping too far ahead without like getting the right experience. So I don't know if you fell victim to that, but I definitely did, where I was like, oh, I'm going to do like 5 or 6 sites, try to work on them in parallel, and then fail to like make any progress, or it's so slow because you've spread yourself so thin. So you focus now. Before we get into the keyword research and content and stuff, you clearly had other websites that you could have worked on. So why did you start a brand new one instead of work on one of those?
The honest truth, again, this is one of my quirks, is I love starting things. I love the building phase and the growing phase. I think mostly because I'm addicted to dopamine. Really, like the pulling out the phone and seeing a new site getting its first legs like that. I think there's a chemical rush in my brain that I'm addicted to. And you don't get that in year 2 of a site or year 3, unless you've maybe done something different or extraordinary. And so there's something addicting about starting a new site and growing it, that there's that joy of that first $1 and then the first $100, and then seeing this baby that you created start to walk. I think I'm addicted to that, truly. And I think that's probably why I started a new site. Of course, I say, oh, I want to have a stable of sites that I can sell later, and this, that, or whatever. But I truly think, honestly, that I'm addicted to starting new sites, and that first year of growing them into something amazing, and everybody being like, oh, wow, that is amazing. And I'm like, I know. Can you believe I did that?
Very cool. And I'll point people towards interviews with Shauna Newman, who has a business model where basically she starts a few sites per year-ish, and then will sell them off, usually over 6 figures. So she always has like a few new things that she's starting so she could enjoy. She didn't cite dopamine, but I assume she enjoys starting new sites.
Well, I have to think about it though, like this, and it comes back to my whole like no look November project, just not looking at analytics. I think people are addicted to looking at analytics and looking every day or multiple times a day to see their success, like right in your hand. There is my success. I can walk around with my phone and check it at the grocery store. Look, succeeded. I'm in line waiting for my kids. I can look at my phone. I succeeded. Like, it's there, and people cannot put it down. They just can't. I posted on my YouTube in the community tab saying that I wasn't going to look, and almost everybody was like, I could never do that. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go a day. I'm like, you can't go a day, one single day without looking at analytics, like really and truly.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. And I was going to say, like, at some point I realized it wasn't like a healthy habit. So I sort of tapered off, and I don't think about it, but I probably only check like once a month or something like that. Maybe a little bit more, but not much more than that. And not too long ago, I was in a national park where we had like no cell phone service at all for multiple days, and I didn't even notice. So I've somehow tapered myself off. I have other very bad habits, but
I'm sure there are many. I'm sure there are plenty.
We drink a lot, but other than that, I don't look at my phone as often as I used to. Okay, let me get it back on track, and we'll talk about the no look November in a sec. But when you decided to start a new site, you had to figure out what niche. How did you go about that process? Can you talk about selecting the niche and the keyword research?
Sure. At the time I was getting ready to pick a niche for this site. It was around the time when Morton was getting ready to launch his passive income geek course and community. And he asked me to be part of the launch. And so I had access to his modules about niche selection. So I decided to follow his his process for niche selection. And it's really heavy in that section about trying to find something that people are passionate about, something that there is an audience there, something that maybe is a niche that other people won't be into, so it's less competitive. And so that is where I started, just sort of following verbatim the things that he did and he showed, because he started a site in his community and just sort of showed step by step how he did those things. So I just followed him, right, and did those things. And I think that something I had not really thought of that much in choosing a niche before was the passion part, because I was not looking for to do a niche that I was passionate about, right? I was looking for a niche that other people would be passionate about, in the hopes that, because I'm like the average Jane, that if it was something I was passionate about, then everybody would be in it. But if I could find a niche that other people were passionate about that I was not, that I wouldn't have as hard a time ranking for keywords and getting traffic, because I wanted to get traffic quickly. So that's what I really looked for, was something that people spent money on and they were passionate about it, but it wasn't something I was into. So I was looking for people dorking out on something, and hopefully a lot of them doing it and being willing to spend money or even travel to do that dorkiness. And so those were really the primary things I was looking at in picking a niche for this site.
Was it harder to find keywords because you weren't part of it? You didn't know the vocabulary and all that kind of stuff?
Initially, and that's something that I've had to work on for 12 months, for the 11 months, 10 months, for the entirety of this case study. This project is, I'm constantly learning about what it is that people are interested in. And you do the Ahrefs thing, right? And you go and you check other websites that are in the space and what are they writing on. And a lot of times for me, it's learning what the topics are supposed to be. What are the silos supposed to be? What do these people actually want to know? And that was a huge part of the learning curve to be able to do this.
Okay. And probably like anything else, like if you're not interested in the niche, but like anything, people start off at the beginning. So you just kind of started off at the beginning, started reading the other sites through competition analysis and such. And then basically you slowly became an expert, I take it?
I think I'm far from an expert, but what I did to try and grease the wheels on this is I took up the hobby. So I wasn't into it, and I wouldn't have done it otherwise. But I became, I joined this community and started to do this thing that people were doing and dorking out about, so that I would have more insight and also be able to take pictures and understand a bit more what these folks, why they were so passionate about it, and what it is that they would want to take pictures of, or to report back, or to connect with each other about, so that I could do a better job with my content. And it's also something that my kids can also do with me. So it's become something that we actually do.
Got it. Very cool. So you chose a niche based on, what you just mentioned in Morton's course, which we could link up. And from there, can you talk about finding those keywords? And you alluded to it a little bit, saying, check out some of your competitors, use tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush. So anything else? And you could maybe talk about keyword search volume, or not looking at search volume, or the number of keywords.
Certainly. I mean, there's so many strategies that can work, right? You say, okay, well, this is the way, the Mandalorian, like, this is the way. And there are so many ways. And I have actually employed multiple ways to find the keywords that I need. But lately, what I have been doing in the last probably 2 or 3 months is I've been looking for a seed keyword that I think would lead to other long tail, low competition keywords. And I've just been going to Answer Socrates and feeding that keyword in there and looking for the long tail keywords. And the specific long tail keywords I'm looking for are the ones that would be repeated many times. So people modifying that search for a different type of topic in the niche. So the example I use all the time is like, can rabbits eat something, right? Can rabbits eat spinach? Can rabbits eat carrots? People have this inquiry a lot, and they wouldn't necessarily want to be on the same page, like, what can rabbits eat? I don't want to read a treatise on feeding rabbits. I just want the answer to this question. Can rabbits eat carrots? Yes or no? And then why or why not? And so I've been looking for those types of long tail clusters that could support a whole article. It's not like what temperature is it right now in Atlanta? Like that doesn't support a whole article. You're like, oh, it's 27 degrees. And like, okay, great. I don't need a whole article for that. The snippet gets it. There's no point in clicking on an article about the temperature in Atlanta right now. So really is there a long tail cluster that can be modified so I can do many articles on that topic, hopefully, so that Google would recognize that my website is an authority on what rabbits can eat, because I'm going super deep into the topic on the various ways without just having one article. Because in the end, I'm not sure anymore that 10,000 word ebook, that 10,000 word treatise on one article on what rabbits can eat is deep enough anymore for topical authority with Google right now.
Okay. And it sounds like because you're going after those types of keywords, or at least like pockets of keywords, writing the content becomes more of a system and you could use a template and just kind of plug it in. Is that a reasonable jump?
I'm outsourcing most of this right now. And so what I am able to reuse is the SOPs. So if I'm going to order the content through an agency, then the SOPs are really similar, right? You're just changing out the name. Now, the thing is that the article itself is going to be different every time because the answer is going to be different every time. So, yes, rabbits can eat spinach. No, they cannot. And then the why or the why not, or why it's good or why not, or what this particular food has for them is good or bad. So it's going to be different. So there's talk lately about if you have the same answer to every question and just changing the primary keyword in it, like if, let's say the answer was the same for carrots, spinach, bananas, and all the rest, and you could just change out carrots, spinach, bananas, and leave the rest of the article the same. I mean, historically, we would not have done that, right? At all. We would have said, oh, that's duplicate content. Google would recognize that as duplicative, maybe penalize you for it. But other people are employing that strategy right now and are having success with it. I'm super conservative on it, but I do reuse the SOPs for ordering that particular content and then allowing the writers then to write the content as they will, so that, because I just don't want it to be the same, cookie cutter the same, even though that might be working right now. I'm just, I guess, a dinosaur on that strategy. And
right. Okay, that makes sense. And there are currently 417 articles, and you mentioned a goal of 500 articles by the end of the year. So how long is, say, the average content? And I know there may be different kinds of content. So can you talk about the word count for the content?
Sure. I mean, in general, I try to get no less than 750 words in a piece. I mean, this is info content answering very specific questions, so it doesn't invite a 5,000 word article. I'm looking at trying to serve the user with the information that they are seeking without then throwing on a bunch of stuff that they don't really want or need anywhere in the article. And in the hopes that other metrics would be positive, that they would see, okay, this is what I needed, and then click over to something else on the site and tell Google, hey, this was a good experience. But in general, I try not to write longer than it needs to be. So some people say, oh, well, I want to have 2,500 words per each one. So I don't have that upper goal where it needs to be more than 750. A lot of the articles turn out somewhere between 900 and 1,300, but I'm not particular about it. I truly don't care. If it answers the question, serves them well, if the answer to the question is in there, usually in the first 3 sentences, then I feel good about it. And I really care a lot less about what the rest of the article says, so long as the answer is very specifically there, that they can see it. Yes, rabbits can eat spinach, and here's why.
Okay. And that, a length of content is probably shorter than what some people are maybe used to hearing, especially when you mentioned, at least 750. But as you mentioned, if people are looking for a quick answer, they don't necessarily want to read, 3 times as many words as they need to just get the answer fast.
It's really interesting, though, the debate about the old Army Ants method and about writing these big, long posts and then Google passages, right?
What's the Army Ants method?
The Army Ants method is where you would assemble multiple questions, right? And I didn't coin this phrase. I've heard Morton talk about it. I've heard Sean Mars talk about it. So this is me just having heard about it. But let's say that your C keyword is about rabbits, right? And you want to write an article about what rabbits can eat, and then you look at can rabbits eat spinach, and you think, wow, the answer for this question is just too short. It's 300 words. There's literally no other way that I can talk about rabbits and spinach in the same post, and I just think it's too short. So what people will do is accumulate related questions about rabbits eating spinach. Can rabbits eat spinach at night? Can rabbits eat spinach in the snow? Or I'm joking, of course, but assembling those into one article so that you have a longer article, and hopefully Google thinks, okay, there's enough content here. This is not thin content. I should send people to this question, and then hopefully also get rank for other long tail keywords that are short that most people don't want to write about because they're like, hey, it's too short. It's too easy. Maybe Google will just take your answer and put it in the snippet, and then people would have no interest in clicking through. But if you have something that looks like a larger guide, then you could get traffic. And so that takes advantage of the Google Passages update, because Google will now just jump you to where you need to go and highlight it in yellow, or even just pull that part out and show it to them on the results page. But the idea is that you could take advantage of these short answer type questions and not have to put them in a separate post.
Okay. So just combine some keywords so you have like more content.
Yeah. The idea is like one single ant couldn't carry a muffin, but a million ants could.
Okay. Gotcha. Perfect. And anything else on content or keywords?
Well, I guess the thing that I'm trying to do is less of the Army Ants method and more of finding ways to take those questions that would have previously gone into an Army Ants post and trying to make them into their own post. Because if you look at Google, the machine, the algorithm has the choice of, okay, I have a very general article about what rabbits can eat, and the section about can rabbits eat spinach at night is 100 words versus a whole article that is dedicated to the question of can rabbits eat spinach at night and has a lot more in-depth content on that topic. So I'm choosing over here. I'm choosing can rabbits eat spinach at night in a whole article versus trying to make shorter answers and crush them into one post in the hopes that I can get that traffic over there, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I was going to say, I run into a sort of similar decision point and or questions with the keyword golden ratio, because you could end up basically with super long tail keywords, very low search volume. It's really short. So the question is, should I combine these keywords together or not? And sometimes you should, sometimes you shouldn't. So I'm sure people can find it in other sort of content or topical relevancy architecture and ways to cluster your site or silo it or fill in, whatever thing we're calling it for that specific architecture. Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say that this is the way, right? Like, this is not just the way. Like, there's lots of ways, and this is just the current way that this site is being built.
Perfect. And yep, it always depends. And basically the answer is pick one way, or this is the answer I give. Pick one way, see how it works, and then you could change it up and try the other way. And maybe that worked better during that algorithm update or not. So,
yeah,
good luck trying to figure it out.
I mean, you can just look at where the site is at, and you could say, okay, this is working or not. So you say, okay, the site had, I think in October, really close. It was like 69,800 page views. So not visitors, but page views. And you say, okay, is it working or not? I mean, sure, great. 70,000 page views by the end of month 10 is awesome. But at the same token, it took 300 and some posts to do it. So you see, I think I saw on Motion Invest, there was a recipe blog that's for sale right now that makes $20,000 a month. And I think that site has 200 posts, 200 pages of content. So who's winning here? Is this strategy really working? I mean, it's great to hit 70,000, but somebody else is winning more than me with other strategies.
And I can't remember when it's publishing, but I have a podcast, maybe a video coming out where I looked at people that built on age domains and people that built on, brand new domains and different monetization, right? So it's a nice mix and match. And, an affiliate model will most likely earn, more per page view and visitor, just in general, not always, but most of the time. So, Shauna Newman from Skip Blast, again, she is doing an all info site, and she was like, yeah, it grew fast, but the earnings are so much lower than where it would be if I had, just went the normal affiliate model route. So
yeah, I think I listened to, she's been on the podcast circuit lately. And I think in 12 months, the site was making $1,000 a month. And for an ad site, that's awesome. But for an affiliate site, it could probably feel disappointing. I feel pretty good with an ad site to have it up to $1,000 a month by the end of month 12. I mean, where it can go, but with affiliate stuff, yeah, I mean, there's the sky's the limit if you know what you're doing.
And people, don't be discouraged if you're not at the $1,000 mark or whatever. So everyone's at a different spot. Okay, let's talk about the sort of growth of the site and kind of walk us through the traffic trajectory. It was a brand new domain, so I expect in the early few months it was just you on the site.
That's true. I clicked over. I'm looking at my spreadsheet over there. See, month 1, month 2, and month 3. So in month 3, there was 1,200 page views. So I feel like month 3 is sort of where it took off. It was January was 189, February was 680, and then March started to grow. So it was 1,200, and then April was 1,600. May was 4,600. June was 13,000. And then July went to 26,000. August, it was 41,000. And then September was 61,000.
Okay. So, I mean, pretty quick, like overall, but it's crazy to hear like the big jumps once you get past, month 4 or 5 or so.
Yeah, I was looking at how many posts I put up. So in the first month, I did 25. So you think, okay, my goal to get to 500. I'm definitely posting a lot more near the back end of the year, because I started out with 25, and then February was 29, March was 40, April was 36, and May was 50. So it's not like I went and put up 100 posts in month 1 or launched. I didn't launch with any content at all. So all of the stuff in the first 3 months, so January, February, March, I wrote all myself. And then April was the first month where I spent really any money on the site as far as content.
Okay. Very nice. And kind of related, link building. So have you done any link building or outreach or anything like that?
None.
Okay. And is that something that you decided for this specific project, or are you not a link builder person?
I'm not a link builder person, and I'm not going to say that this site doesn't need links, because I think it does. And it's that I'm not going to pursue that in 2022, because I am. But up to now, it's not a strength of mine. And it's something that I feel like is a weakness I need to overcome. I need to tackle this and to get better at it, I think, to be competitive in this space.
Okay. Yeah. And it's what's easier not to. And when you're getting results by publishing content, it's easy to make the decision, like, I'm just going to focus on this thing that clearly works. Because, with link building, you could go out and work on link building for 3 months and spend, $1,000 a month for the 3 months and a lot of time, and basically have very little to no results in the 3 months. Or you may see great results. Like there's a lot of variables in play. So
not only that, but it's not objective. It's
right.
Totally subjective, and there's so much that we cannot control. You say, oh, I did this work this month and I did this, and then Google is an office of monkeys pulling levers every day. Something is different. You say, okay, I changed something. Can I objectively say that change produced the result that I see on my site? And the answer is no. Never. Not a single thing, a single day do we truly know if what we're doing is 100% repeatable.
Yep. And sometimes I was going to say, I had a friend who would launch 2 sites in the same niche. Like whenever he launched a site, pretty much, he tried to match things up as well as possible as far as quality of content, amount of content, all that stuff. And some of them just would take off and others wouldn't. And it's literally like the same quality content from the same set of writers. And it's crazy.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even know. You think that what you're working on is a fresh domain that's never been registered, and that might not be true, right?
Yeah.
You think that you got an age domain that is fully clear and happy, and that might not be true just because the data is not available to you through a tool or through Wayback Machine or Ahrefs. You don't always have control over these variables. Sometimes sites just don't go.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just don't go.
Or they take a little longer. Like a site that I have, it took, the sandbox was like 9.5 months, 10 months, something like that. And then it started to go a little bit better. I also sort of shifted the content over to more informational as well, but that makes me think about your site now. It's informational now. Is it a niche where you could add affiliate product reviews, or is it something you're looking at?
I'm not pursuing that too heavily, mostly because I don't want to go down the road of relying too much on Amazon. There's probably 10 or 15 posts on the site that are affiliates that are they're primed to have to get affiliate commissions, and I link to a lot of those posts in the various articles. So it's, hey, you're interested in this, and by the way, there's this other thing that you might be interested in, just because I'd like to even just driving people over to Amazon for the cookie, especially right now as we go into the holidays. But I don't have any real plans to go down that road because I don't want to invest. I don't want to spend the money on these things. I would want to pursue reviewing products that were expensive, $300, $400, $500, and these products exist, but I don't want to buy them because I don't want to have them. And I don't want them taking up space in my garage, and I don't see it as my passion. And I really am advocating pretty hard for people to do those things with the products that they are reviewing and recommending, because I think that's what Google wants to see. I think those types of reviews perform the best. And I have a hard time producing good content for products that I don't have and never used and would never use.
And I know it's beyond the scope of what we're talking about today, but like if people buy the products, it's perfect for YouTube reviews, which, if you can market in both channels, then you're going to probably do much better than your competition. Because it's hard to do video. So if you could do it, you'll be able to put the video.
Very few people are comfortable doing this, like seeing their face and then editing videos with their face in it. It was hard for me in the beginning, and very few people, and we talk to people all the time about YouTube, and they're like, oh yeah, I would do YouTube, except that I don't want to be the face of the channel.
Yep. Yeah. I also hear that. And there's a couple ways around it, but you it's much easier if you just put yourself out there, but you do have to get over that. Okay. So we talked a little, monetization. So you're sticking with the ads, and shout out to Ezoic. So you're just using Ezoic for the monetization, aside from Amazon, of course.
Yes.
Okay. Anything notable working with them?
I put ads on really early because some people say, oh, don't put ads on because there's no traffic, and there's no point in putting ads on because you only make 2 or 3 cents. And I like putting ads on really early because I like to see what articles emerge as the best earners, because then it guides what content I will invest in subsequently. So if I write a cluster about can rabbits eat spinach versus a cluster that is where can I buy rabbits in New Hampshire, and one of those is dramatically more valuable as far as the RPM, then I'm going to invest in the content silo that is the most valuable. And if I wait until I have 100,000 page views a month and I have 500 pieces of content on there, I have missed the boat. And sometimes I don't know that you can get back from it, because Google recognizes your site as an authority on can rabbits eat spinach. So after that, it doesn't necessarily matter if you want to produce content about going to New Hampshire to get rabbits, because you're a blog about what rabbits can eat.
Right. Yeah. And that's a struggle too, optimizing for maybe the easiest to get traffic versus how much you could earn. And I guess the earnings could shift too over time as advertisers, shift their dollars, or the interest of the public changes or whatever. So,
yeah, well, I don't know if you remember the site, the site that I talked about when I first came on your show a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was. It was a case study, another site that I was just reporting on monthly. And that site was one of my first successes where I thought it was going to the moon, right? I was like super jazzed about it. It was growing month on month, and then it stalled out. And what was interesting in it is that as Google was doing its updates, it got slaughtered by May the 4th. And the content cluster that emerged, it was the cluster that I had written the most articles on, and they were super easy articles to create. But I discovered that once they emerged as my top 10, that they were the least valuable articles, period. Like the RPM on them was less than $1, right? It was laughable how unvaluable they were. But now when I go to post content to that site, it doesn't rank. It doesn't do anything. The only articles that rank are articles that match in that niche. Google has recognized that my site, in my opinion, is about this really lame cluster. And so I think that probably to resurrect the site, I will have to either shift those articles off or take a cluster that's something else more valuable and go deep as deep to try and change what it is that my site is about in Google's eyes. And I don't know how deep that would be or if it's even possible to rescue it. But I'm not super motivated to go work on it right now because it makes $1 per 1,000 visitors. $2. I think it's the average is around $2 per 1,000 visitors right now because of that cluster. And that site has over 300 posts on it.
Oh, wow.
And it's shockingly bad, right? But this is the shift. And I think that's one of the reasons why I pay so much attention to what is emerging as what is valuable, because I just don't want to go down the road again of creating a bunch of content on topics that are not valuable. And then will I be able to get out of that rut to try to make more money on other posts? And I might be too sensitive about that, but I put hundreds of hours into a site that makes $2 per 1,000 visitors.
So let's talk about No Look November.
That's it.
So don't look at analytics, and actually tell us about, kind of your relationship with we talked about the dopamine already, but then you talked about the positive part. Now, one thing that while I've been doing this for a little while, so I've checked my analytics and, traffic drops 90%, bad things happen. Can you talk about some of those negative aspects of looking at your analytics all the time?
The thing that has brought this to my mind, and the reason I decided to take action in November, is because the MIGA site has been riding high on month gains. And October, even though October was a good month, showed me for the first time that I don't want to say weakness, but it was the first sign that things wouldn't just continue to rocket straight up from now to the moon forever. And I think part of it could be Google. Part of it could be some of the work I'm doing on the site, and it could be some seasonality. But for the first time, I don't see the same growth that I did month on month for this month. And I recognize how I feel because I feel less motivated, right? To get up, and a lot of people do this, and I was doing this too, where I get up and the first thing that I do is say, how did yesterday go? Right? So before I'd even got out of bed, the alarm would go off, and the first thing I do is put on my glasses, get on my phone, and see how did yesterday do. And if yesterday did great, I was like, let's do it. I'm ready to go to work. But if the day was not as good as I wanted, then I would start my day filling my brain with something negative. Maybe I was missing out on that dopamine rush that is like my morning cup of coffee to get me going. I'd have a harder time getting started. I would have a harder time getting to work. And I realized how addicted I was, how reliant I was on those statistics. And in the end, the fact that the MIGA site didn't grow as much as it did last month on any particular day doesn't change the fact that I'm going to go and post 500 articles by the end of November. But I felt like it was making it harder for me to do those things, when in the end, it didn't change my strategy because I'm all in on my strategy. It didn't change my work and when I needed to do it. It just made it harder. And why would I get up and make my life harder? In the end, the site's going to do what it's going to do. And it doesn't need me to look every day. And I think people, including myself, just look too much. We don't need to be checking stats in the line at the grocery store, especially when we checked them an hour ago before we left to go to the grocery store. It's like a habit, right? Like people who smoke or who have a thing, like you have your phone and you look at Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and like, oh, like, let me open up my phone because I have something, like a minute. I'll just see how things are. And you swipe and it's there. And I just, for me, that only works when things are good. But when things are not good, then it places artificial hurdles that I don't need. So I decided to say I wasn't going to look in November, and I announced it on the live stream on Wednesday, so just 2 days ago. So I didn't start until Wednesday, but it was a spur of the moment thing, and people are like, "Yeah, right." Like, and somebody says, "I don't think you can do something," and I'm like, "Watch me!" Like, let's go. And that was initially like my thought, like, "Oh, you don't think I can do something? Well, then, I'm like riding herd on this." So I put it on my community page, and I deleted Google Analytics from my phone so I can't be tempted. And I will tell you, it's embarrassing actually, how many times I go to reach my phone. I'm like, oh, it's not on there. I better put this down. And it's interesting as I go through this, I guess, detox in a way. I'm an addict. And I see myself like reaching for it and like the mental implications. And what do I fill that time with? I'm like, okay, I'm not going to look at my phone now. So my daughter and I baked cookies yesterday. It was just it's not that I would have normally spent an hour looking at analytics instead of baking cookies, but I was like, let's find something more positive to do. So we made chocolate chip cookies. And the day before, on the first day of my detox, we made pumpkin pies or went for a walk or, clipped some bushes in the yard or something else. And I don't like being so tied to that and having something that doesn't matter in the end impacting my business and my personal life. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't just like depress me for my websites. It would depress me for the day. Like, oh God, yesterday wasn't as good as I hoped it would be. And then I would just feel like,
yep.
There's no point in looking at this. And when I posted to people on YouTube that I was doing it, a bunch of people were like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't go one day. Like, really?
Wow. Well, I was going to say, I've never had the Google Analytics app on my phone. So that was like, I guess that helps a lot. You're going to do this for November. And then what do you imagine the ideal number of times that you would check your analytics and metrics per month, would you say?
I think once a week is probably better than looking once a month, because you use analytics as a way to troubleshoot when problems are happening. Like if you don't look at a site, and this happens to me occasionally, where a site that I haven't touched, I'm totally ignoring it, it's in the garage, and then you check and you realize that your ads text is down, and so you're not showing ads, or the SSL certificate has been corrupted, which happens with WPX. I don't know why, but their SSLs just sometimes stop working and a new one needs to be reinstalled. And you realize that people are getting the message that your site is unsafe and they just bounce back. And so you see these like traffic gaps. So they give you information about when you need to troubleshoot those things. So I don't think every month, once a month is ideal, but going 2 or 3 days with your SSL in bad shape is not great. But if you only checked once a month, then having a month of Google getting data from your site that it's unsafe could impact the long-term health of the site.
Cool. So about once a week, that seems good. And I mean, if you're scheduling it or something, I mean, I could even see twice a week where you just pop in, make sure there's no issues, like you said.
Oh, that's a great idea. Like Monday mornings are the days that I just do a sweep. How are things doing? What articles are emerging? Maybe I'm getting ready to order content and I need to know what was good or what's not good, or are these articles doing anything yet?
Okay. Now, as we're wrapping up here, what are the plans for this site for next year? So you're reaching your goals. You're going to publish 500 articles. You're probably going to reach your revenue goal of $1,000 within 12 months. So what's happening in 2022?
I think the goal for this site will be putting it into, I don't say maintenance mode, but putting it into this mode of just regular production. Because what I want to be able to do is have multiple sites in this status, right? In this stage. But what I have not been able to do yet, because I get distracted by squirrels and shiny objects, is I can only usually work on one site at a time. So I need to make the transition and figure out how in my business and in my workflow to manage multiple sites like this. So I don't want to have just one site that's on this growth curve. I would love to have several. And Shauna Newman does it, and she's got her flow figured out and a team figured out. And that is the goal for 2022 is, to scale, right? 2021 was focus, and 2022 is how do I scale this for what I have going on in my life? I have kids at home. We're Cub Scouts and this, that, or whatever. I can't sit in front of a computer 18 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. That's not my life. And that's not why I'm in this business. So for this site in particular, I want to figure out how to keep it on this strong growth curve and continuing to invest in it month on month consistently, while also building another project behind it that is on the same trajectory as 2021.
Okay. And for the kind of maintenance mode, what do you envision for this initial site?
What I would like to do is, instead of focusing on a number of articles to create or traffic goals, is I want to put it squarely on something I can control. And I think what I'd like to do is just make the goal of investing a certain amount of money into it each month, which in spending money on sites is something I've been really conservative about. It's been hard for me to do. So for example, just to spend, let's just say I want to spend $1,000 a month on this site for 12 months and then see where it is. So instead of saying I want 1,000 articles or 500 articles or so many hours, is I think what it's going to come down to is I just want to make sure I spend at least $1,000 on the site. And then that could be anything, right? It could be link building. It could be content. It could be via Pinterest VA. I don't even know. But just making that my goal. Again, it's something I can control, has nothing to do with analytics or anything else. So my mood and how I feel about it is not impacted by the site's performance. And I'm not getting out of this business. I'm not quitting. So if the site tanks tomorrow, it's not like it's going to be the end of me. So I don't want to focus on stuff like that.
Got it. Very good. The last question, which I didn't ask you to get beforehand, but do you remember just ballpark how much you've spent so far on the site, like cumulatively?
Let's see. I know through the end of September was $5,100, and I think I spent $1,200. So it's probably $6,300. $6,300 in 10 months to make a site that makes almost $1,000 a month.
Okay. And the other part, it looks like you have everything right there in your spreadsheet. So how much cumulative revenue has the site pulled in?
Well, at the end of September, it was $2,000. So it'll be about $3,000.
Got it.
It'll be almost exactly $3,000 actually. So I'm $3,000 in the hole right now.
$3,000 in the hole, and just a kind of ballpark estimate of the valuation of the site. I wrote a figure down here, which is probably a little generous, but I'm curious, what do you put the value of this site if you were to say put it on Empire Flippers or something?
Because of the age, I would only give it, in the mid 30s times revenue, monthly revenue. So I probably put it 35,000.
Okay, cool.
If I was going to try to sell it today off of Empire Flippers, off of someone who had a broker and was taking a fee, I would list it at 35.
Perfect. Yeah, I wrote down 30,000. The average revenue over the last 6 months would be like not $1,000. I don't know what it would be. Of
course not, but I think you could project that because of the way it's going, that in the next couple of months it would continue to grow or at least be stable, which is why I would, and it's like you would only sell it to somebody who actually agreed with you. Because some people are like, oh, it didn't go to look average the last 6 months. The last 6 months is only $400. So I would only pay 30x times $400. I'm like, that's fine.
That doesn't make sense. Well, and the thing is, like, if you have a site that's like showing growth, even if it's young, like if you're in a growth trajectory versus a flat situation, that's that's totally different. Or, if your site's declining, like good luck trying to get anything, what you think would be fair. So, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is people say, oh, well, so-and-so says that it's worth this, or only, so-and-so would only give it this multiple. And you say the fair market value of a site is what somebody's willing to pay for it. So if somebody's willing to pay $50,000 for this site, I mean, it doesn't matter what I think it's worth and what you think it's worth. And if somebody's only willing, the max that anybody is willing to pay is 10 grand, then that's what it's worth. It doesn't matter what I think. You ask me what I think, and I think this site at this time could be sold for 35 grand.
Very cool. Well, anything else you want to mention before we wrap it up?
The thing that I just emphasize more than anything else is that success in this business, in my opinion, has less to do with what you know versus how long you are willing to commit to doing it, how persistent you are. I look at a lot of my colleagues and a lot of the people I esteem, such as yourself and other folks that are in this business. And it used to be that I thought that you guys were so far ahead of me, that you guys knew so much more than me. And what I have realized in my 3 and some years here is that what you guys have on me is time. You guys aren't any smarter than me.
Nope.
You've just been at it longer. And that's what I tell people all the time. I talk to people in their first year all the time, and they're like, this, that, whatever. I'm like, I'm not any smarter than you. I've just been at it longer than you. That's it. Just stick with it. If you stick with it 3 to 4 years, you too could be sitting on a project like this, or maybe even be ahead of me, because you wouldn't have done all the dumb things I did.
Persistence is a key piece of the formula. And yeah, I was going to say, I'm definitely not smarter than, you. Well, I don't know how smart you are, but you do have glasses on. Clearly that, makes a big difference. But I have bumped into people who are clearly much smarter and much more accomplished, but they're maybe impatient, or they don't want to do like the boring work for as long without any sort of like visible results. And yeah, if you're willing to persist and like focus, usually you'll figure something out. It may not be the exact thing that you thought, but you'll probably make it work out. Great point.
I think that's more important than anything, truly. Like what what the money that you have to invest, what your background, training, experience is. Like, I really just think it's time.
Very good. All right. Well, people can check out all the updates. You've done one every month, and I expect a new one will be coming out pretty soon. So where can people find you? I'll put a link, of course, but where should people go?
If people wanted to come and hang out, I have actually 2 YouTube channels. One is devoted to my pre-recorded videos about websites and whatever else I decide I want to create. And then I have a separate, much smaller channel focused on interviews and live streams. And I stream once a week, like yourself and Alex, WP Eagle. Just not even to do anything substantive. It's just like going to the pub and sitting around and chatting, like, how'd the week go? And what did you do? And how to hold everyone accountable and get questions answered. But truly, it's just to hang out. So if people wanted to come and hang out with other like-minded folks, then I would welcome them.
Very awesome. Thanks. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.